Hello, world. This is John Pinto, your roving realtor, bon vivant video blogger, podcaster, home chef. And today we're going to talk about things to consider when you are embarking on doing a structured installment sale as an investor or a homeowner looking to get a tax advantaged real estate sale. And we are here with John Dudek from Sage Settlement Consultants. How are you today, John?
Doing wonderful, doing wonderful. Good to be with you as always, John.
Very good. So, yeah, let's talk about things to consider um, and kind of storyboard this process. Um, who are you finding of all the players involved are the ones that are initiating this discussion on installment sales as an alternative to selling for cash and paying taxes or doing a 1031 or whatever or a traditional installment sale? Other than you, who is initiating this conversation typically?
Typically, it's the advisor of a seller. And so that could be a financial advisor, that could be a CPA, that could be their realtor, somebody that is knows them, somewhat intimately in their financial situation intimately and knows that they're in a situation with a very highly appreciated property. Maybe knows that they've been looking to sell that property, but they don't want to because of the capital gains tax exposure. Um, but that's usually the channels that we go through. Every once in a while, we'll have an actual, homeowner or property owner come to us direct, but for the most part, it's through the trusted advisors.
Okay, and what is your opinion on the level of awareness of those various entities on Internal Revenue Code 453 and Publication 537, or at least the subjects that those address on structured installment sales? And how difficult is it for you to quickly bring the different parties up to speed on that?
Yeah, I'd say the level of awareness is when I bring it up, they say, "Oh, I've heard of something like this. Yeah, it's kind of familiar," but there's not a strong level of complete understanding. And I think when you say how hard is it to quickly bring everyone up to speed, it doesn't usually happen quickly. Usually there's an education process. But that's something that we've been working on for a while now, and we have trusted partners that we've gotten up to speed, and so we uh, are trying to expand our net as always. But we're lucky to be working with people like you, John, who understand it and can help us if we have other partners or other property owners that need to talk to an expert that already understand this.
And how much resistance do you need to fight through to encourage people to look at this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the resistance mostly is a lot of people say it sounds too good to be true. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to, paint this in rose-colored glasses, but people say, well, if this is true, how come I've never done it before? How come I've never advised someone to do it? How come I've never heard of it? And we went through on a previous episode kind of the history of this product and why it started gaining popularity and lost a lot of its popularity due to market conditions. But that's the main hurdle that we have to get through. Having partners like MetLife, Metropolitan Life, which is one of the largest life insurance carriers, financial institutions in our country, having partners like First American Title, that is very well known and respected in the real estate space, that helps a lot. And so that's kind of what we lean on, and obviously we can give them the IRS codes for them to go read up on it, but not everybody goes ahead and does that. So having those trusted partners really helps.
Let me ask that question in a little bit of a different way in terms of resistance and or use in different income brackets. I gotta think the higher the income bracket, the more familiar, adaptable, and willing people are or have been to utilize these tools. Can you comment on that?
I think that's fair. I think when you come across people that are earning higher wages, have higher at or higher valued assets, they're more um, adept or more open to listening to tax deferral strategies, maybe ones they haven't heard before, because um, they're if they have to pay their full load of taxes under without using these strategies, it's going to cost them a lot more than it does the average Joe. So absolutely, I think they're always open to hearing these strategies that are not as widely known by the American public.
Well, I think we have to confront the issue that, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area, you can have relatively modest, quote unquote, middle class people that have fallen into a windfall because they bought in the right zip code. But they may be teachers, they may be software engineers, they may be doctors. They're not financial experts, but all of a sudden, they're looking at a property that they bought for tens of thousands of dollars that is now worth millions of dollars. And it's not inherent in their skill set um, to intuitively manage that kind of capital gain and that kind of tax liability. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, you're up in the Bay Area. I'm down in Southern California where, 30, 40 years ago, there used to be these sleepy beach towns where you could just you could buy a home. It was very affordable. And now they've turned into these very sought after communities where you can't get anything that's less than seven figures. And so they have this amazing asset that they deserve and they should get the benefits from, but they don't want to sell it. And I get a lot of people's strategy, you probably know better than me, is just hold on to it till I pass away, and then the kids get a step up in basis. But what if you want to utilize some of that? You want to utilize that asset and liquidate it to live the life that that you have remaining. So it's a unique situation that people and I think California, both your area and my area, is pretty uh, unique nationally where that's happening.
There is a sense of urgency too here because it's not difficult to imagine multiple scenarios where people are equity rich and cash poor, and they've owned these properties for decades, and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of accumulated deferred maintenance, which could pose health and safety issues. Outdated HVAC, roofs that need to be replaced, possible plumbing leaks, mold issues, indoor air quality issues. The houses are paid off free and clear. They don't want to put a mortgage on it, but they don't have the retirement or investment income to pay for the deferred maintenance. So they literally become trapped in these houses as tax prisoners. And it's compounded by the fact that there could be health hazards. And me being a baby boomer, as my friend Richard Pontus once said, how many good summers do I have left? Or how many summers do I have left of any ilk? And so there does come a tipping point where people want to stop being prisoners in their home. They want to convert that equity into cash flow and put themselves in a position where they could lead healthier, happier, less stressful lives. And the structured installment sales are a tool to facilitate that. Do you get that kind of input from people?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Having, people that are getting up there in age a little bit, they've had the home for a longer period of time, so they've appreciated more. Um, Maybe they want to move into a single story. They bought a 2, 3 story house years and years ago, and now it's their kids are out of the house. They don't want to walk up and down those stairs as much, so they'd rather have a single story. But again, they can't sell it, they can't exchange it. It's their primary residence. Um, in my area, I'm sure in yours as well, there's some pretty amazing assisted living facilities that people will move into that they're costly. And so if they want to move in there and sell their house, again, they're just terrified to because they know they're going to pay almost 40% of the sale in taxes. So this is a way to sell that home, uh, reduce that tax liability, spread it out into a reliable stream of income that they know will be coming each month, and with their trusted advisors can be planned out, to the dime, to the minute on when they'll be receiving those payments.
Great, great. So let's talk about some things to consider. I think we just addressed some compelling reasons to consider a structured installment sale. Now let's talk about some things to consider to make sure that you have a frictionless structured installment sale with plenty of velocity to get from point A to point Z with the right outcome with the minimum amount of hiccups. So we know the buyer has to agree to the transaction. So in my perspective, from my perspective as a realtor, that means just adding to your listing agent's disclosure package, explaining things in advance to the buyer. Could you advise us on what some of the components and documentation are in that listing agent's disclosure package that would give the buyer and the buyer's agent a heads up?
Well, some of the if you want to move forward with the structured installment sale, MetLife has a packet of forms not uncommon to many real estate transactions. There's an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement that, a standard purchase and sale agreement says what you're going to pay for the property, but this will lay out the periodic payments that MetLife will be making over time, as well as some of the liabilities that everyone has with the transaction. There's actually there's a source of funds form that MetLife wants to see where the buyer will be receiving the funds. And even on the seller side, MetLife will ask for they'll do a suitability test because they want to make sure that this is a viable option for the seller from their standpoint. That the seller can handle the lack of liquidity all in year one, which again, most of the time when you're selling a home in Northern or Southern California, there's enough to go around, so it's not an issue. Um, so those are the main forms that you'll have to look at. But again, that's something where you bring in the trusted advisors ahead of time. That's all shown up front. There's no secret about them. We're happy to provide those as early as possible to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what they're signing.
Tell us about how loosey-goosey the annuity agreement is between MetLife and the homeowner, or does the homeowner and the advisors need to get real specific on the term, the payments, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great point. So the annuity contract, you're spelling out periodic payments. You say, I want to receive monthly payments for the next 10 years, and I want them to start January 1st of 2025 for tax reasons. So if that's what you decide at the time of the transaction, that will be written in stone in the annuity contract. The annuity will start payments on 1/1 or 1/15/25. They'll pay monthly for 10 years, and then they will end. Some people that are maybe have had an annuity in the past or familiar with annuities think there might be a surrender period, or hey, if I need access to the money early, I'll just break the annuity contract and pay a small penalty and it's no big deal. In these transactions, that's not the way it works. You need to the whatever the payment schedule is absolutely set in stone, cannot be changed, cannot be gotten out of with a penalty. So there is some level of planning and certainty that needs to go into this because once you make the decision, it's locked in stone.
Very good. I've got a little bit of an off-the-wall question. This is an asset. Can that asset be sold?
Well, yes. Adam, you've probably heard the jingle, JG Wentworth, 877 cash now. I've got a structured settlement and I need cash now. So we're not big fans of those guys. They can be sold, but you're going to get
You're going
20
to
to
have to
20.
take a deep discount.
Oh man, yeah, 15 to 20 cents on the dollar, something like that.
Oh,
So
really? That badly? Okay,
yeah,
I got you.
yeah. So I don't, if you're thinking of maybe selling and doing this and selling in the future, I don't recommend that strategy at all.
Okay. So this is something that you're going to stick with and long-term planning is essential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, as far as all the different parties being brought into this and how early they should be brought into it, can you give us that roster?
Yeah, so I mean, you wanted the listing agent and the seller obviously need to be on the same page. The listing agent needs to know that this is going to be something the seller wants to do. I want this to be a term of the sale. I'm going to do a structured installment sale. So that team needs to be on the same page. At some point, you need to the buyer, obviously, prospective buyer needs to know that this is going to be a condition of the sale. The buyer's agent needs to know that. Um, if the buyer and the seller probably want to consult with their CPA, possibly their tax attorney, possibly their financial advisor. Mostly the financial advisor and the CPA on the seller's side, but it's good for the buyer just to have everyone take a look at this transaction to make sure that everyone knows what it encapsulates and how it works. So, I know it doesn't always work this way. Things are not always perfect, but and I just like the idea that everybody is brought in as early as possible, so there are no surprises, and the deal is frictionless, as you always say.
Very good. Now, we also referenced in an earlier podcast that you need to bring the title company into this early on too, correct?
Well, that's right. In our discussions with the title companies, we know that these type of transactions have been brought to the table and not approved in certain situations. But the fact that we have MetLife as the carrier partner, and we now have First American as kind of uh, agreed upon partner as well, we know that we have title companies and reps that are totally comfortable with this transaction, have been looked at by their national underwriting department, and will approve them in the state of California.
Are there any complications or additional paperwork that the buyer's purchase money lender will require as part of this package? Because they're going to see the purchase agreement, they're going to see the addenda referencing the structured installment sale. Are they going to request any further documentation or provide any flies in the ointment?
Yeah, not in our experience. Obviously that's kind of between the buyer and their lender, but the lender, as we understand it, is investing in the credit worthiness of the buyer. So the fact that the buyer is doing an installment sale should not have any effect, good or bad, on that relationship.
Okay. So, like in any real estate transaction, the listing agent on behalf of the seller wants to be very proactive in storyboarding the transaction, financially modeling the transaction, and documenting the listing disclosure package with all the traditional documentation that we talked about, prelims, termite inspections, et cetera, et cetera. But we also want to populate it with the structured installment sale documentation that's going to be required for everyone to sign, be it the seller, be it the buyer, be it at the time as an addendum to the listing agreement or at the time as an addendum to the purchase agreement. Can you give us some insight as to what those addenda are? And I'll make your job easier. First, let's talk about the addenda for the seller.
Well, the addendum for is just based off of the purchase and sale agreement, so it's not specific for the seller. It'll just, you'll have your traditional approved purchase and sale agreement, and then there'll be a MetLife form that says we agree that there will be periodic payments, that the obligation of those payments is going to be transferred from the buyer to MetLife. MetLife will make those payments through an annuity contract. So they just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. There's a paragraph in there, I believe, that says everyone concedes that they've had their trusted advisors review this transaction and that they've approved it, that sort of thing. So that's for the buyer and the seller, and that's the main addendum that we talk about. Again, there's the suitability for the seller. There's uh, the buyer's source of funds. They need to show that they're either going to pay cash or have it financed. But otherwise the addenda to the sales agreement is the main one.
Well, the listing agent and MetLife's requirement for proof of funds and current loan pre-approval documents are going to sync up perfectly well because the listing agent's going to want to see that anyway.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
I'm sure it's just a little redundancy for MetLife to make sure that they've got their I's dotted and T's crossed.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for imparting all this information on things to consider when doing or considering a structured installment sale. So, John, if our viewers want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Absolutely, yeah. So my cell phone shown, below my name there or next to my name, 401-524-4022. Feel free to give me a call or you can text me. My email will be put out in these recordings. It's jdudek@sagesettlements.com. My partner Tanis Kelly is tkelly@sagesettlements.com. So reach out to us any way that you're comfortable, and we're looking forward to helping you and hopefully giving you a solution that you haven't heard before.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, John Dudek, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in. And we will see you on the next video blog. Bye for now.